Time really doesn't exist. Clocks exist. Time doesn't exist.
Right.
And like you said, we've been given this functional arrow of time, which puts us in one specific direction so that we can organize our thoughts and our days and our years and weeks and what we're going to do and what we're going to meet up with somebody and everything else. So we have this ability to coordinate and collaborate with each other like how we're here today at this specific time. However, if you understand that time is also an illusion, it's something that you can use as a tool, but if you also understand that it's an illusion, then you can actually master time and you can maximize what you're doing on this planet.
Well, it's not a book for the beginner, initiate. You understand me? It's definitely more novice when you get into your understanding.
Yeah.
And then that's when he proposed and he talked about alien life on Mars. Right? He talked about the different planets who can and who can't go there, what they were doing and building. Like, he has very detailed composition of thought on extraterrestrial life.
Yeah.
You understand me? And the origins of the planet itself and the universe itself. You know, and it's very interesting because we often believe that our connection to, you know, the way that the Dogons were able to chart the stars is lost. Right? You know, but that knowledge has always been within our DNA and always been passed down within us. There's just certain keepers of that knowledge.
Exactly.
Right? And those keepers of the knowledge are not often listened to because, especially today, we in a very static, distracted, low-level way of thinking. So it's like you have to think about the mind, and it's not even to say that they were the most intelligent people on the planet, but connected, you understand me, as being different. Like, that's a different type of intelligence. Because we only measure academia or scholarship intelligence that you get from universities, but we don't measure the intelligence you get from the universe. You understand me? I want to talk about, you know, I don't want to leave time in the star system just yet, but I do want to talk about your relationship with astronomy and whether you believe astrology to be a true science or not.
Well, I'm actually an amateur astronomer.
Okay.
I've been doing that for a long time.
Yes, sir.
You know, I have a real nice telescope. I have a Celestron SLR, and it's a real nice telescope. You can actually see the rings of Saturn. You can see Jupiter. You can see Mars. I took a famous picture that's been circulating for years of Mars during the summer. When you take a picture of Mars during the summer, it actually has green, it has blues. It's not a red planet. You can see that the ice caps are smaller, which means they've melted. There's a lot of liquid water on the planet. And a lot of those greens, I believe, is vegetation. You know, and now all the science data is coming back out from NASA. Now, all of a sudden, press releases are coming out. The soil on Mars is better for growing crops than on Earth. Now they're saying this, there's billions of tons of liquid water on Mars now.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
I can believe that.
And they're also talking about the fact that there's an atmosphere that is the equivalent to being like 18,000 feet above sea level, but that's like going to Peru. I'm going to Peru in a few weeks, right? So same thing. You got to acclimate to that height, to that low oxygen, but you can still breathe as long as you stay close to the ground. Once you go higher up, it's going to be very dangerous. But if you're within like 10 feet of the ground, you can actually breathe. You just need to acclimate. So all of a sudden, all this is coming out because why? They're getting ready to, you know, to build an infrastructure up there, in my opinion, and do a breakaway civilization. That's what the whole Elon Musk and all that's on Mars is all about. So I got really into it. Now, one of the reasons why I built the underground shelter that you mentioned, called Fort Terra Nova, that was back in 2012, was because I was analyzing the precession of the equinoxes, the movement of the stars across the sky, the constellations across the sky. I noticed that they were speeding up. Based on my calculations, it was moving, instead of 27,000 years for one cycle, it was actually averaging around 25,000. I'm like, are the books wrong? Are these great astronomers wrong, or what's going on? And the more I dug into it, the more I looked into it, I realized the only thing that can explain this is if our sun is orbiting something. It would need breakaway speed, and it would, you know, it would speed up and it would slow down, speed up and slow down. So I started digging into that. I found out that they had something they were calling nemesis out there, something that they couldn't exactly say what it was, but they were saying there was a huge object out there orbiting our sun, and our sun was orbiting it. And they found it about 3 or 4 years ago. They labeled it Planet 9, but really is a brown dwarf star. They found a brown dwarf orbiting our sun. So we live in a binary solar system. We don't have one sun, we actually have two. One's a brown dwarf, which you can only see with 2-mass infrared mode on your telescope. You have to have a digital scope to see that. because it's so dim, you can't see with the naked eye.
Is the sun black or white?
The sun is white. It's bright white, so it's not black actually. If you actually were able to go out and look at the sun above the atmosphere, you'll find out that it's actually bright white light. When it hits our atmosphere, it scatters, and when the light breaks down, we see more of the yellows because the blues are kept up there. So the sun actually is bright white.
I saw some say that the sun is black, but it's the charge of light that gives it the appearance of white.
Well, it's a nuclear explosion. Now, what's interesting about the sun is that a lot of the light doesn't even get to the surface for like 100, 200,000 years. Mm-hmm. So it could be both, a little bit of both. It could be that it is a dark sun, but the light is what we can see. For example, the sun is 8 light minutes away from Earth. So if the sun went dark right now, we'd have daylight for 8 minutes. Mm-hmm. Now the light,
and that's 90 million miles away.
90 million miles away, right? And the light that's formed on the inside from the collision of the atoms on the inside, the nuclei, when they're colliding and splitting, that light doesn't go straight from the center core right out to the outside of the sun. It actually meanders through the inside of the sun for thousands and thousands of years before it releases itself and leaves the corona. Then it takes 8 minutes to get to Earth. So the light that we're experiencing right now is hundreds of thousands of years old before it even got to us. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Before it left our sun.
So light is very interesting. You understand me? I want to talk about light and water for a second. Look like we might get to the whole elemental period by the time we're done with this conversation. So, I remember before I got on the journey of, teaching the financial literacy and liberation aspect, my deeper studies was into quantum physics and science and psychology and, a multitude of different things that I believe would help guide enlightenment. You understand me?
Yeah.
And so studying light, I started studying the 4th phase of water, right? Where in between, for those who don't know, water has 4 different phases. Some people say 5, but we're going to the 4. You understand me? Solid, liquid, gas. You understand me? And I used to think about that because I say the only difference between the water and each structure is the proton arrangement, not the proton count.
Right.
So it's not something new that's happening to the water that is entered into it that changes its state. It's the arrangement, you understand me, of its energy. Mm-hmm. And so when I thought about that, and then of course, light is energy, so we can say that it's light that changes, and then water has the most different states out of any other element. Yeah. And so I liken that to consciousness, right? Yeah. That our consciousness can be in rigid states, it can be in flow states, right? Yeah. But what changes? Your consciousness going from a lower consciousness to a higher consciousness is enlightened. Literally, electricity changing the arrangement, you understand me, and the structure of your state of consciousness. And you can see a symbol, right, and gain enlightenment, right? And it can cause an inner knowing that can have your mind, raising this vibration.
So solid matter is actually an illusion.
Right.
For example, the only thing stopping my hand from going through this chair is the repulsion of the electromagnetic frequencies. I don't actually touch the chair. You don't touch anything.
Yeah.
And so if I can phase shift the atomic frequency of my hand to match the same frequency of the atoms in this chair, I'd pass my hand right through it because atoms are 99.999% empty space.
Right, like pouring liquid into liquid.
Exactly, That's why when galaxies merge together, like we're merging with a galaxy right now called Sagittarius, you don't see any real collisions happening or anything around us.
Shout out to my Sagittarius out there.
Yeah, because, galaxies are mostly empty space, just like atoms. Everything's a fractal. So we are light beings, and also because of that, we're a fractal. We have consciousness, which is also light. And
what is a fractal?
A fractal is when you take, for example, if you look at a hologram, and you go to one part of the hologram, one tiny piece, and look at it, you'll see the entire image in that smallest piece. The only thing you lose is a little bit of resolution, okay? And so it's important for people to understand that this entire realm is a fractal of a whole. In other words, as above, so below.
So if you look at an atom, it gives you the whole thing.
It gives you the whole thing, absolutely.
So human beings, would you consider a fractal of the universe?
We're a fractal of the universe, and our consciousness, even though it's one consciousness, it's also a fractal of the main master consciousness. And it's really incredible that every thought that you think in your skull, it leaves your skull as a form of a light wave. Every time you think.
Talk to him then.
Yeah, man. Every light wave, every time you think. And we know this because we could put a cap on your head in a laboratory, put a little electrodes on it, sensors, and tell you to think about something. and it's going to show up on the computer screen because the computer's reading the light waves coming out of your skull. We can't see those waves because we can only see 1% of the light spectrum as human beings.
Right.
We're limited. We don't see gamma rays. We don't see ultraviolet.
What affects us the most?
Yeah, exactly. Those are the things that are all around us that are really interacting with us all the time, and our brains too.
Right. And that's what I was getting to with the water, because the ultraviolet radiation is what causes that fourth phase to flow, like blood flow within our bodies and things of that nature, by creating a separation between positive and negative charge. And in between that small space right there is where it creates that charge and flow. And they was doing a study where they tried to take two prods, put one on the other end to create energy. Yeah. Right? But go ahead.
Yeah, so that's what it is. So, we have this power of thought, which you were talking about, having the ability to even travel through light, leaving your mind and traveling light. You can actually connect to other realms, other dimensions through conscious thought. Quantum entangling your light waves with other light waves that exist in the universe, not only in the third dimension, but even multiple dimensions.
Right. So like quantum entanglement, for those who don't understand, are two basically atoms that are entangled with one another, even if they are at vast distances. Right. Right. And Einstein called it, spooky. Right, because he didn't understand what was going on.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But we understand. It ain't spooky.
He said a spooky action at a distance.
Yeah.
And you can entangle atoms, you can entangle photons, which are lights. Right. So
do you think that's what happened when people fall in love? They consider to be soulmates?
I think it happens. Well, your mind can entangle with somebody on the other side of the universe. A lot of the times, you can say, "Oh, I came up with this great idea." Right. But you really didn't. You just downloaded that idea because you entangled with the information.
Entanglement.
That's all it is. All information actually exists. And now, like big time mainstream quantum physicists and theoretical physicists are admitting that this is true now. Yeah. Like it's not woo-woo science no more. This is like what you're getting taught in university. When I was at MIT studying applied neuroscience, one of the things we learned about was this exact thing. The fact that not only can you walk in a room, like you were saying earlier, and you can sense the vibe, and you can actually transmit negative or positive energy to somebody. Somebody's at a low frequency, and you walk in positive and high frequency enough, your light being can actually raise their energy level. Right, right. And if you're not high enough and they're low, they can actually drop your energy level. Right. It depends on how strong you are consciously. And then also we talked about the fact that we can entangle with information throughout the entire multiverse. So information can even come from other universes into your own mind. And if you're able to discern that information, you can actually then, if you can put the action behind it, it could be one of the greatest inventions. It could be Web3. It could be, whatever we got going on now. NFTs or whatever. All this stuff comes from other places.
So biophotons is what I wanted to get to. Because biophotons to me is very interesting, because I think it's like taking the concept of science and physics and being able to apply it, you understand me, in a real world sense, and connect, yourself and your willpower, right? It was Dr. Wesley. He has the Book of God, and he has a very, very dope book, very amazing book. Everybody should study it. But he gives a breakdown of biophotons, and this was one of my first introductions to it, when he was talking about a study that was done at this university, to study biophoton levels, which is basically, for those who don't know, is light within the human body. Right. And so one of the things that they studied was the fact that during a time that a patient was sick, you understand me, the light that they emitted glowed brighter, right? And of course that was because the body was working to heal itself. Yep. And the thought process was that if you go back to ancient human being origins, that those human beings were just light beings, complete light beings. And as I'm positing this thought right now, as melanin, you understand me, overtook those bodies, and you're talking about, that very dark melanin, and then you have light, piercing out of that, which used to be where hair follicles are, you understand me? Then you're talking about a blue aura, or a blue hue, right? And so in ancient texts where you see a lot of the blue representation of gods or beings, there were the representation of the original man and woman as light beings. Yeah. Now, the way that I connected to science more so is the idea that, our mind has light within it, right? And it communicates directly with the light outside us, and that
Yeah.
this is scientifically proven that we can think things and bend the wheel of reality around us. Like
Exactly.
the Matrix played with our concepts and ideas. The spoon doesn't exist idea.
Exactly.
But more so is, you know, each one of us have different levels of consciousness and conscious power.
Yeah.
And the ability to bend and change reality around us,
Mm-hmm.
which is also a very masculine trait because testosterone increases that biophotonic energy.
Mm-hmm.
You understand me? Within the body. So depleted testosterone depletes willpower as well.
Yeah.
So it's saying that, for me, I always say that one act of masculinity is willpower,
Mm-hmm.
the ability to take thoughts outside your mind and produce them into reality.
Yeah.
So if you have a people who are not able to produce their thoughts, then those people are lost without that will,
Yeah.
right? Without that power, without that godliness. And so that's something that I think about often as I see our brothers and sisters hoping and wishing
Yeah.
and trying to bring things forth, but they just can't because that light inside them is dead.
Dead. Plus, a lot of the male in this society right now, they're being emasculated.
Oh yeah, sterilized.
And so, you know, and a lot of it's chemical based.
Yes.
It's the food.
Chemical
it's the,
castration.
Chemical castration, man. It's all these microplastics that are, you know, we're inhaling them, we're eating them. It's in the food, it's in everything. They did a test on those microplastics. They were converting male frogs into women.
Right.
You know, I mean, this is just crazy stuff. So
That's a hell of a leap.
it's a big leap. That's a big leap. That's a
Couldn't
good one.
resist myself, y'all.
Oh man, but it's so true, you know. And so it's taking away the testosterone levels in men are the lowest it's been since they've been recording them.
Right.
And so to that effect, what you're saying is, you know, the levels are dropping, and the ability for men to make a lot of logical decisions is
Right.
also dropping.
Right.
You see men now operating more off of emotion versus logic.
Right.
That balance of logic versus emotion isn't there anymore.
Right.
Sometimes there's a lot more men that are more emotional than women.
Yes.
So their plan is working out, you know,
Yeah.
and the plan for them really is to not let us discover our light body, not let us discover our light consciousness and the power that we really truly have inside of us to change and bend and mold this matrix to our will and overcome and supersede where they are.
Right.
What they want us to do is just continue to stay in these small little pockets, fighting each other over scraps, and not really ever getting to the higher levels and realizing that we're supposed to be able to bring our heaven right here to this earth right now.
And see, that reminds me of when you talk about the beings that can see and they look down, right? Like you imagine somebody in a tower looking down on the people playing the game of the rat race, but they can see dimensions. They can see where the people are headed. They can see all different angles, right? And those are the people, what considered to be the 1%. You understand me? And then, of course, that can be translated into multi-different, you know, names and forms and species and things of that nature. But the ruling class, if you will, you understand me? The manipulating class, those who practice tricknology and deceit on the rest of the population to not know their power.
Right.
Like the greatest trick of the devil is to get you to not know that you're a God.
That's it.
You understand me? Because the moment that you have self-realization of your power, number one, you stop looking at them to help manage you discover it.
Exactly.
Because if we go to chattel slavery times, and I like to say chattel slavery just because it's such a different form than the rest of the slavery. But chattel slavery is all about breaking that knowledge of self and that knowing of who you are. Because how can you make a slave unless he is completely dependent upon your will?
Exactly.
And the testosterone-filled masculine slaves were the hardest ones to break, the ones that have their own faith and belief systems, because they weren't going to relinquish that power to someone else.
Right.
No, they fought, and there was insurrections all throughout times because that willpower was fighting another will. You understand me? You know, and so now what we got is more so Chris Rock, where you don't fight the will no more. You just let it slap you around. You understand me? I just had to drop another one. I couldn't help myself. If a white person or black person, brown, yellow, orange, all these frequencies of colors that represent subscriptions to different cultures, ideologies, values, norms, rituals, ever want to have a place where there's commonality and trust and alignment, you have to accept the truth of reality. Not the stories that was told by the winners and conquerors, that fit the propaganda of the controllers and rulers, but the true story on this planet Earth.
Yeah.
That's the only way we get to a true compromise between the people on this planet Earth that have a treaty of understanding. You
I
understand
always
me?
tell people the past is prologue. People say, why do you always study the past? Why are you into this ancient texts and ancient books and all? Because until you understand what happened back then, you won't be able to build a future. The future is going to be built based on what you know about your true past and your true history. If you can't figure out at least as close as possible to what was happening back then, the future is still going to be a gray area.
Aliens.
Yeah.
Let's talk about aliens.
Yeah.
I can't have Mr. Billy Carson on here without talking about aliens. My theory is aliens are black men.
Yeah.
That's my theory. Now, that of course this comes from many different sources, but I remember I was reading something, or watching it rather, I can't tell you the difference, where they was talking about, spacesuits, human spacesuits, and how human beings will have to change if they were traveling in space, right? Number one, there's more radiation, so you're gonna have to have darker melanin skin. With that lack of gravity, you will have a smaller, less dense body. So you're going to be a skinny, dark skinned, big head, black man or woman. You understand me? So, these are spacesuits.
Right.
I mean, we deal with radiation. That's what the melanin does.
Yeah.
You feel me?
Radiation and the heat.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you believe in aliens?
I believe in aliens.
Are you an alien?
Well, we're all aliens. You know what I'm saying? So
alien might answer like that. Some people say this brother be thinking, man, he might be an alien.
A lot of people say that, but I think that we are the aliens. When you talk to the Aboriginals, I went to Australia. I went on a walkabout 8 miles out into the doggone nowhere, nothingness. I mean, just out there, man, with the fires.
Yeah.
Okay. This is right before the lockdown came, and I'm out there looking for these ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs in Carryong 9 in Australia, which we found them. We sent those glyphs to the Board of Antiquities of Egypt, and they authenticated them as being authentic Proto-Egyptian hieroglyphs. And so my conversation with the elders was, what is your homegrown, handed-down verbal history? Because they have a verbal history. And the Aboriginal elders said that they were seeded on this planet. They said that the Pleiadians brought them to Earth, and they were the first people on Earth. Those are black Aboriginals.
Who are the Pleiadians? The
Pleiadians, if you look up in the sky at night, there's this area of the sky where they call them the Seven Sisters. Homer's Iliad talks about them. They're talked about in the Bible, talked about in Sumerian tablets. The Greeks, the Romans, they all look up to the Pleiades. It's actually, we call them the Seven Sisters because only 7 bright stars you can see with the naked eye, but there's many more stars there. But in that region of the sky, according to so many ancient texts and so many ancient civilizations, there was advanced civilizations there. Before this area had any inhabitants, that was the region or sector of the galaxy that had a lot of life. But a big war broke out. And in this war, there was something being used called the Brahmahanda weapon, okay? The Brahmahanda weapon, which actually could destroy planets. And this weapon would blow up planets. And imagine if you're in a star system and there's planets blowing up, planet-sized debris is crashing into your planet. So this created a space refugee situation, kind of,
Space refugees.
Yeah, space refugees. And they started fleeing and going out to different stars. Orion, Aldebaran, Zeta Reticulus, all these different star systems, Sirius, Draco. This is why
they had the Draco?
Oh yeah, the Draco star system's up there. That's what the Great Pyramid in Giza in Cairo is aligned with those, with Draco, Aldebaran, Orion, and Sirius. And so we were like, man, what's going on here? So the more you dig into this text, it's like, man, these people fled from war, re-established themselves on other planets, and eventually found this solar system and came down here and created another breakaway civilization. These were the Atlantean people. Now, when you analyze the text, it gives descriptions of these peoples from time to time. And if you look at, for example, the Sphinx in Egypt, you look at the features on the Sphinx, you can see this, it's a face of a black person, right? And what's interesting is some of these Anunnaki, they were more albino. Not all of them. Some had albino type skin. They weren't Caucasian white, but they had albino skin, but they had the African features. Some of them had blue eyes, but they had the knotted hair.
Like Prometheus.
Right. kind of like that. But Burmese is still kind of really more almost like milk white. If you look at a black mulatto, a black or a black person that has that, you know,
More
that skin
brownish
condition.
glow. Yeah.
And but they had the knotted hair, knotted blonde hair, and blue eyes. A lot of them.
Like the Aborigines.
Yeah, like the Aboriginals, and also the people of Melanesia, right here, you know, in Asia. And so I did a whole story on those, a whole TV show on those before. So I really dug deep into it. I was like, wow, these people are really potentially not from this planet. And so the more you analyze it and realize, wow, then other people from other star systems brought humans here. This is like, this Earth is like
parents abandoning their kids?
No, what it was is like they were trying to find a place to keep their civilization going. Not like the species going. Okay? And so that's why you have people that look Asian and people that look Caucasian and people that look black and people that look, there's a mixture of people, according to what I've read, that appear to be dropped off here. This is like an abandoned seed colony, this planet.
Interesting.
You know, and then after that, much later, these other people showed up, these other Anunnaki people showed up, took advantage of a situation where people were in a lower state of consciousness. They were not technologically advanced. We were more advanced spiritually.
So when they were dropped off, you saying that the races were dropped off, or were they all dark-skinned, melanated people?
The first people on this planet were all black, and then you find something interesting in the Emerald Tablets. After Thoth comes to the land of Kim to help rebuild civilization, he tells his people that he brought with him. He brought people with him from other planets, and they went around the planet. He said, go around the planet and duplicate what we did here. Now, this is my personal belief. This is not in any text. I always tell you the difference between what I believe and what I've read. Now, these people, for example, if I'm now going to be the king or the ruler of Asia, and I'm a being from a place that looks Asian, I'm going to brand those people. I think they genetically branded people to look, in other words, these are my people. Look at them, they look just like me. And the reason why I say this is because if you go and look into genetic books, the geneticists actually discovered that the difference between a black person, a white person, an Asian person, a Native American person, 2% variance in genes. But that 2% variance that makes a different race altogether, could be years for that to happen, naturally.
Now, from my studies, there's no records of Caucasians past 6,000 years.
See, Caucasians are the newest race on the planet. They're the newest race. If you look at the Sumerian tablets, the Caucasians came from out of the Caucasus Mountains. It says something to the effect of when they were in the Caucasus, they then, he said, the exact terminology was that they, there's a certain term that they use for that, not manufactured the Caucasian, but they said that they had, the word will come back to me. It's like they made them in a way. It's something, it's a terminology that they use, it'll come back to me, that how they made the Caucasian, but they're the newest being on the planet, according to these texts. The other races were already here. We had blue people, green people, you had black, you had yellow.
And once we understand that we living in this world of a four-corner contract, you understand me, that, you know, paperwork rules this world and it lifts us off of being attached to the land itself. That when we walk around, we don't look down at our feet and say we own the land. We have dominion over the land. We think that we are always on someone else's land. We're always under someone else's control. And that mental observation depletes the soul of being able to have a real connection with the earth itself.
It does.
When you look around, there's somebody who has sky rights and land rights. Not ownership, but rights. Right? And once we realize we living in someone else's plans, as you say. Whether you believe it's the Anunnaki, whether you believe it's the 1%, whether you believe it's these families or control, you have to know that we're living in somebody else's time system, and it works very well.
Oh, very well.
Very well.
They mastered this sucker.
Way too well, matter of fact. You know, and we are controlled by invisible forces. And if you don't think you do, you stop at a stop sign. You stop when there's a street light. You understand me? And you don't cross that line because something may happen to you. An invisible force, no police around, no people, but you still listen. You understand me? That is, I mean, you talking about some people, it may not be cars for miles, and they will still follow that system, right? I want you to touch on the ideas of systems, you know, because institutions is what I focus on, like the reality of we building institutions are only things that can dominate existing systems. But what is the energy form of a system to where it actually has real power and control over human forms.
Yeah. Well, the way that they built all these institutionalized systems that we have that are controlling mankind, they're all predicated on fear. You'll find that fear is the biggest thing. For example, you go to school, if you don't get good grades, you're going to get in trouble. You know, you won't pass the next grade. If you act up in school, you might get, you don't stay in line or whatever, you might get spanked with the ruler or the paddle or whatever. You know, obviously on the street is follow these exact rules or you're going to go to prison. You know, so they have all these systems in place. And these systems that they put in place, when they have these little fear factors built into them, even religion has a lot of fear factors put into it.
Absolutely.
People fall in line because why? Fear, the body pays attention to fear first. The mind is always, okay, there's fear. I got to stop this fear. I got to do whatever it takes to not allow this, whatever this fear is, to happen. I don't want it to happen to me. So the body goes into fight or flight mode, and then it starts focusing on the fear. Once the body does that, these people who rule, the ruling elite, they know that we got them with the fear. Now we can manipulate them to do whatever we want. So they always do the same thing. They create the problem, okay? They wait for the reaction, and then they provide the solution to that problem. So they're actually manipulating all sides of it based on fear. The fear is a key thing in all these institutions that has us locked in, because people, when that fear hits them, they don't recognize that fear is not real. False evidence appearing real, that's what fear is, right? The acronym. But for them, it's as real as it can be. But in true reality, fear is a choice.
Yeah, fear comes from ignorance.
Yeah.
You know, once you know something, there's nothing to fear because you have all the data. You know exactly how to move, what not to do, exactly what it is, what's not. You know, and once you come to that realization, it gives you so much power over all.
Yeah.
Right? And so becoming fearless, you understand me, is key.
Yeah.
Our bodies all automatically store systems to tell us fight or flight.
Yeah.
That in moments a situation is giving us a signal that you are in danger.
Yeah.
So this danger needs to teach you to make a decision.
Exactly.
Either this tiger that's coming right now, you understand me, you're going to stand very still and hope that it doesn't attack you, or are you going to run, right? Or are you going to fight?
Yeah.
You understand me? Because they're fright, flight, then fight. You understand me? And I think that that's one, and the fight is the decision that you have.
Yeah.
That even if this tiger is so close, I can't run, I can't stand still now, not here. I have to figure out a way where I'd rather go down fighting.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the part of human decision making that is never deposited as an idea of this is an option.
Yeah.
That you can always choose to fight. In every moment, in every situation, even if the certainty is death.
Yeah.
You understand me? Because at least you would die being alive.
Exactly.
You understand me?
Exactly.
But to freeze or just to run, because there's times where, you know, flight is the most, you know, intelligent option that you have, right? But fighting, there's something so powerful and majestic about that, because that's the human spirit colliding with whatever force that is in front of it.
Yeah.
When you see two boxers fight, those are spirits going at it. And whoever has the most will win. You understand me? Not even sometimes we have the most skill or better technique. Sometimes it's all about who got that greater spirit. Because the fight is often won before you get into it. We'd have been through recessions, paradigm shifts, different new presidents. We'd have been through 9/11. We'd have been through so many different things. Today, during the timing of this filming, there's a terrorist attack that happened. And April happens to be one of the most observant months of white terrorist attacks, right? From Timothy McVeigh, from the Oklahoma bombings to the Columbine, right?
Wow.
And it's a few other ones. April is one of those, you know, it's the 4th month. It's a lot of things that happen on the 4th. And once we understand that we living in this world of a 4-corner contract, you understand me, that, you know, paperwork rules this world, and it lifts us off of being attached to the land itself. That when we walk around, we don't look down at our feet and say we own the land. We have dominion over the land.